Hey guys, welcome back. Another episode of the All In podcast. This is episode 12. I'm one of the co-hosts, Mike Badzik, joined as always by my co-host Eli Cooper. What's up, homie?
What's up, man? How's it going?
It's going good. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a third screen joining us today. If you're listening, then Taylor and Sizzo is with us, a former guest on the Mikey and Friends. If you were a listener there, he was our gambling guru. Thanks for joining us, Taylor. What's up, man?
How's it going? Good to be on. I haven't done a podcast since I think I went 11-2. I don't even remember what week it was, but gave some good picks, and then I retired early. But I'm back out of retirement, so good to be back.
Yeah, you definitely went out on a high note. I think 12-2 actually. So I think on the year you were like close to 70% on the spread picks. So
yeah, don't check my FanDuel account though.
Yeah, right. So we are today doing a NBA draft mock draft for the lottery picks. So that's why we have Taylor on. He's kind of an NBA draft guru. You know, he's a gambling addict. You probably don't know he's also an insomniac. So when everyone else is sleeping, he's up watching and gambling on Australian and Chinese and European basketball games. So he's well versed on all the European guys and just the basketball fan, so he knows his stuff. First, we do want to talk about some other stuff we got going on at the All In Network. Our website, allinnetwork.net. We just posted today another article by our friend Dan Thiel. So thanks to Dan for posting that. Really good article about white privilege and the burden that white people share in this fight against racism that America's in. Definitely highly recommend checking that out. We've also got the articles Eli's done and the articles I've posted. Following this podcast, I'm going to post our first big board for the NBA draft, but I wanted to do the podcast first so we could each kind of get some thoughts in, and then I'll post that. So that's going on with the website. What else is going on with us, Eli?
So our sister podcast, All In with Rain and Bliss, is just 6 days away. Well, by the time you guys are hearing it, it'll be 5.
Yeah.
They are currently recording episodes now, getting ready to release some previews leading up into their debut. We're really excited for them. They're going to the network, and let us know what girls are really thinking is the theme of their podcast. So it's going to be interesting, I think, for guys and girls to tune into. You know what I mean, to get their perspective on topics and things like that. So make sure you guys follow them on Twitter at All In Rain and Bliss. And they're looking for topics that you guys want to hear. So make sure you reach out and give them some topics and them some stuff to talk about in their first few episodes. And at the end of the show today, we're going to tease another special guest that we'll be having on Monday's show. So stay tuned to the end to hear who we're bringing on next.
Yeah, we're excited about Monday's show. It's going to be a really cool interview. Also, just for the YouTube and the Apple, if you're enjoying the podcast, if you're enjoying the videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you like what we're doing. Turn on your alerts so you know when we're dropping. All that stuff really helps us as a network. So we are going to do mock draft of the lottery. So we're going to sim a lottery here, and then we're going to kind of just take turns. We'll go Taylor, Coop, and then me making picks, and then we'll all kind of discuss all the picks. So I am going to hit this sim lottery thing right now. I'm on tankathon.com. So let's do this. Okay, this turned out interesting. Okay, so we got 14 is Portland. They keep their pick. Writing these down as we go. New Orleans is 13. They keep their pick. 12 is Sacramento. They keep their pick. 11 is the Spurs. They keep their pick. Phoenix is 10. They keep their pick. 9 is Charlotte. So they fell a spot. 8 is the Knicks. So bad luck for the Knicks. They fall 2 spots. Detroit is 7. They fell 2 spots. 6 is Minnesota. They fell 3 spots. 5 is Golden State. So they fell from 1 to 5. 4 is Chicago. They got a big boost. Okay, so top three, we have Washington, Cleveland, and Atlanta are the top three candidates. So 3 is Cleveland, 2 is Washington, and that means the first pick will be someone to play alongside Trae Young in Atlanta. Probably the hardest team to draft for, because you don't know what kind of piece you want to put next to Trae Young. So it's going to go Atlanta, Washington, Cleveland, Chicago, Golden State, Minnesota, Detroit, Knicks, Hornets, Suns, Spurs, Kings, Pelicans, and Blazers. So before we start, Taylor, what's your overall thoughts on the draft class as a whole?
So this draft class, there's not a clear-cut number one, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could say there's 3 or 4 potentially really good players. Somebody that's on my top 3, in my top 3, is kind of more of a plug-and-play guy, and that's just kind of how this draft is going. Now, going from like 4 to 15, from what I have ranked, a lot of good role players down the board. A lot of good plug-and-play guys, 3 and D kind of guys, people that I think could fit in nicely around them. So, I mean, it's not a flashy draft, but I think it could be a productive draft looking forward. Like over the next couple of years, I think we could look back and, you know what, there's not a lot of all-stars in this draft, but there's a lot of valuable pieces to, potentially good teams.
Yeah, I'm calling this the role player draft because there is a couple guys who have the high ceilings to be top all-star level. I don't see it with a lot of these guys, but I think you're right. I think there is 10 to 15 solid role player, maybe 5 to 7 guys who are going to be starters in the league for, 8 years. It's just a matter of digging through all of the mess.
Agreed. I think there's a lot of good, pieces that you can, use as role players or, high quality, guys who can fit into a starting 5 or even off the bench. There's 3 guys who you really look at that jump off the page. And there's, one guy I think that has star potential, who's a little bit of a sleeper who we'll get to. I think as far as the entire draft goes, even outside the lottery, there's a lot of like good players who could, turn into, quality guys in the league, good 6 men, stuff like that. So it's not a draft to sneeze at all. I don't think it's like, the Anthony Bennett like draft class. You know what I mean? I thought that one was pretty bad, but
but it could be. It's got potential
guys.
to be. It's got potential.
It
to
does,
be, and especially with the number 1 pick, it's got potential to be an Anthony Bennett type dud. There's no surefire Anthony Davis, Derrick Rose. There's none of those guys.
Yeah.
And Eli, I think I have a feeling I know who your sleeper is going to be, but I won't say it until you give it. I won't say it until you give it. Okay. So Taylor, you are the Atlanta Hawks GM, and you are on the clock. Who are you putting next to Trae Young?
So, I hate the idea of drafting for Atlanta around 3 or 4. Just probably for one reason is because if LaMelo Ball is still there or not. They just drafted or they just picked up Clint Capella, so there's a couple nice centers that I like. I do like that I got stuck with them at 1. Right, it makes the selection actually easy for me. I'm going to take Anthony Edwards, the 6'5" guard out of Georgia. 6'5", 225, 6'9" wingspan, 18-year-old kid. Just like first impressions, a lot of my scouting, watching videos of these guys, remembering college games that I've seen. The first thing that comes off the screen is just like his explosiveness, his athleticism. Right. He's a relentless finisher, explosive athlete. He has a good body, 6'5", 225. I think he can be a great defender. See how the motor would be, how that translates to the next level. Could be a potential knock on him, but I think he's got the build to be a great athlete. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, these guys get drafted, these 6'5", 6'6" wings. Yeah, they're a good defender. They have good potential, but you never know how it's going to translate in the next level. But I do think, he's a quick bucket getter. One of the games I did watch him play was against Michigan State. He scored 33 in the second half. of I think it was the Maui Invitational. You know, he's just a smooth player, smooth shot creator, can create his own shot. Another knock would be, you know, maybe he did shoot 30% from three, but I think a lot of that was questionable shot selection. So I think if he can clean that up, maybe let Trae Young take the questionable shots at the next level, which I'm sure he will. He'll take. Maybe he can take some smarter shots and, you know, and fit a good stable role there in Atlanta.
Yeah, I had Edwards ranked number 3 on my board overall, but I think he does make the most sense for Atlanta. I definitely would not put LaMelo Ball next to Trae. Wiseman, I think, would be the other guy who makes some sense there. But, you know, they have Capella, and I think that they want to pair him with Trae. Anthony Edwards, you know, streaky shooter. The basketball IQ is a question, right? But, yeah, if him and Trae can feed off of each other and kind of share the burden there, I think it makes sense. You know, the three-point shooting. So I'm a big guy. This is just something I do, and I think that the data backs this up. But I look less at three-point percentage and more at free throw percentage. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but that's the thing. I guess that correlates better because I don't know if it's just like the way they work on it or the form or whatever, but it seems like free throw percentage translates better. So he's a good free throw shooter, 77%. But, yeah, a little streaky.
Yeah, I also went with Edwards at the number 1 pick here. You know, and for the reason, you know, that Mike just mentioned, they traded for Capella midseason. Wouldn't really make sense to, you know, go with Wiseman in that case. And I think, you know, everything that there is to say about Edwards has been said. You know, physical freak of nature. He jumps off the page. I think he has D Wade type, you know, potential as far as his athleticism goes. Like you guys said, he has to get more efficient. I think he has to develop a mid-range game to kind of do that, you know, not to overutilize it, but to just add that into his arsenal so he's a 3-level scorer. You know, like you said, the free throw percentage, you know, is a better indicator than the 29 or 30% that he shot from 3. And I think with the improved like floor spacing, I think you see efficiency get a little bit better for him. Plus, I think Taylor made a strong point. You got Trae Young there. Ball's going to be in his hands less. It's going to force him to, you know, pick his spots better. So I think that's, you know, and also John Collins. Like, there's going to be a lot of guys in that offense that get touches. Cam Reddish, Huerta when he comes off the bench. Like, the Hawks have a good young core that isn't going to, you know, rely on him to be the go-to guy, which I think is actually good for him, right? You know, it gives him an opportunity to learn about shot selection and focus on defense, because that's what's really going to help him get on the floor. If he can be a two-way guy, you know what I mean? That way they can kind of hide Trae Young, you know, in important games and things like that. You got him and DeAndre Hunter on your wings. Collins at the 4 and the 5. I mean, Collins at the 4 and Capella at the 5. Like, that's a very good defensive lineup if Edwards, you know, locks in on that. And that would give the Hawks, you know, you bring Huerta and Cam Reddish off the bench. That's a scary, like, young top 7 right there, man. I think he's the best fit by far for the Hawks at the number 1 pick.
Okay, you're on the clock with Washington at number 2 then. That's also a tough spot with Beal and Wall.
Yeah, it is, because, and I think if they were to get this pick, it kind of forced them into a decision on, like, what they're going to do, you know what I mean, as far as, is it tanking time or what? But I think here, Wiseman makes the most sense for Washington after they took Rui Hachimura. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Last year with the number 9 pick gives them a nice, you know, power forward spot. I think Wiseman at the 5 would give them, you know, at least someone who can pick and roll offensively and give them some athleticism, some interior defense with shot blocking, a potential rim protector. You know, he's got to get stronger, of course, but and he's got to get a little more disciplined. He leaves his feet a little bit too much, you know, when trying to attempt to block shots. And obviously, you know, we saw a limited amount of him at Memphis, so we're not 100% sure, like, how fluent his offensive game is, you know, as far as, like, his own shot creation from, you know, down low on the block or even from mid-range on in. He hasn't demonstrated that he's really willing to shoot the three. I think if he can add that to his game, that would make him lethal. So extending his range is going to be the big thing for him. But I think at the number 2 pick for Washington, Wiseman makes the most sense.
What do you have on Wiseman, Taylor?
Well, I think Eli, I think you covered it pretty well. One thing I do have is I think he's got potential to be a good shooter. I think he can space the floor. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he did shoot. He shot 70% from the line. So like what Mike said earlier, he shows that ability. I did like his touch around the rim, and he's a lefty, so he's inevitably smooth looking jump shot. So. But
college, and they were pretty much against junior college players. So if you look at his per 36s just at Memphis, you'd be like, holy shit, this guy is going to be Shaquille O'Neal. I think so. He's actually number 1 overall on my big board that I'm going to be putting out tomorrow. I like it. I think that he's a good, if nothing else, he's going to be a guy who right away is someone who can play pick and roll and dive to the hoop efficiently and still have touch if he's fading out. Good feet, 7'1", maybe put some size on him. I guess the knock is he's kind of got like a soft reputation right now, but he was the number 1 guy coming out of high school. I think guys who are number 1 out of high school typically have a weird soft thing, especially when they're a bigger guy. It just feels a little different. But elite athleticism, good frame for his age. That'll probably improve too. We'll probably put on some muscle at some point. I think that he makes sense for the number 1 pick. If it holds true and the Warriors get the number 1 pick, I think that they go with him. But yeah, he's number 1 on my big board. So then I have the 3rd pick with Cleveland. And this is kind of tough because, I said I had Wiseman was 1 and Edwards was 3. So LaMelo Ball's obviously 2 on my big board. And Killian Hayes is 4 on my big board. So, but, I like Colin Sexton. I think that Colin Sexton is a legitimate piece that you can build around. If he's playing the shooting guard, that's fine with me. But, last year they spent their first round pick. They had the first round pick on Darius Garland. So you kind of wonder, what's the fit? How does it work if you draft LaMelo Ball here? Are you just saying, we're going to try to make it work with 3 guards? Or are you saying Garland, whatever, we messed up, let's just I think that I would stick with Sexton Garland for now. I don't know because Ball, and we'll talk about Ball with whoever picks him. But he's a work in progress still, right? So I don't know if he necessarily is going to come in and it justifies taking those minutes away from Sexton and Garland right at the beginning. So I think with the 3rd pick with Cleveland, I should probably take Ball, but I'll take Onyeka Okongwu. Freshman from USC.
Wow.
So 6'9", 245. He's only 19 and a half. Explosive athlete as a power forward center hybrid. Super explosive. He's efficient around the rim. He's got good touch, good feet. So my ceiling player comp is probably Bam. The offense is what needs work. But I think that will come with age. USC, he had an okay season, but it wasn't great. But I think that they weren't using him super correctly. I think that he makes sense as a fit draft piece for Cleveland. I would not be scared to take him at 3, even with LaMelo on the board. Maybe that was a risk.
Interesting.
No, the first thing that jumped off when I saw Okongwu is his explosiveness. Just a crazy athlete. He is 6'9", but he's a 7'1" wingspan. I mean, he doesn't look undersized. I understand Pac-12, it depends on who you're playing, but he plays with his frame really well. He has a big presence, good pick and roll player as the big guy. And he did score like 16 points a game, and he doesn't have a great post game. I think he's one of the best defensive players in the draft, arguably the best defensive big man in the draft. So
yeah, I would
overall,
say
I think
1 or 2.
I cringed when you picked him because I really liked him for maybe not here, but I was hoping he'd fall a little bit. I do like that pick.
So who'd you have at 3 then, Taylor?
Number 3.
So Taylor has the 4 pick with
4.
Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So 4 for Chicago. Okay. Man. All right, let's see. My big board out. 4 for Chicago. Man, LaMelo Ball's still there. I was hoping one of you guys would pick LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, no, he's such a tough.
On my board, I think I have Obi Toppin on my board, but I'm not going to take him yet. Right? I do like the big guys in Cleveland right now. I do like, Wendell Carter, and I do like Lauri Markkanen. Man, one guy that I really liked, in this draft, but I do like in this draft is Tyrese Halliburton.
Oh, I love Halliburton.
I think I'm going to take him with the 4th pick. Right? From Iowa State.
Shit.
I know, right? Is that crazy?
No, I like it.
I mean, he's 5
so
on
let's
my
do, so let's do this. Let's do this then. So I think that there's probably 5 point guards who are gonna go in the lottery. Maybe not all in the lottery, but probably in the top 16 or 17.
Okay.
And that's LaMelo, Killian Hayes, Halliburton, Cole Anthony, and the last one is the Alabama kid. What's his name? Kira Lewis Jr.
Kira Lewis.
So let's start with this then. How about we rank those? Rank those 5 point guards for me, Taylor, because that'll help. That'll help do this.
Okay, that's fair. I might have jumped the gun.
And the way I just listed them is how I have them ranked: LaMelo, Killian Hayes, Halliburton, Cole Anthony, and then Kira Lewis last.
So what I have is LaMelo, Halliburton, Hayes, and then I have Anthony and then Lewis last.
Yeah.
So
we just have Hayes and Halliburton flipped.
Yeah. Yep.
How do you have them? How do you have them, Coop? Same order?
Yes.
Or close?
So I have LaMelo. I have Halliburton second. I'm a homer, so I'm picking Cole Anthony third. And then Hayes and Lewis round out the top 5.
Okay. But Taylor, you're taking Halliburton over LaMelo here?
I am. I don't know. Something about LaMelo. I think he has potential to be a multiple-time All-Star.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is about him. I don't really trust him, taking him with our top 5 pick. Now, that being said, you could argue about Halliburton at Iowa State. Didn't really translate into wins for Iowa State, kind of underwhelming performances in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. But right when my initial thought when I watched this guy is how fluid he is, right? How just fluid he is running the pick and roll. His game in transition, he does have a 7-foot wingspan. He finishes at the rim in a bunch of different ways. Good touch, good floater. I don't know. He's a good shooter at 40%. The second thought about him is he's got a set shot.
It's funky, right?
It's kind of off-putting.
Yeah.
To see somebody that big and that athletic, and then just I don't know. You don't even know what's coming. It's kind of goofy. But, 40% from 3, he's not going to be – if he's a spot-up shooter, he's got an open shot. He's got a high release point with a 7-foot wingspan. I think the jumper will be fine. He'll probably develop a little bit of that. But a couple reports say he's a great character guy, And he's an all-around – really good all-around player. Averages 15, 6 and 6 with 2.5 steals a game. A lot of those have to do with him taking risks, not being a great defensive player, but he does take a lot of risks. He succeeds a lot. But just watching this guy is so fluid. I don't know. I like him over LaMelo just because of the unknown from LaMelo. I think Tyrese has. I think I'm just more secure in that selection. And one more thing with Chicago, I think Kobe White and Zach LaVine. I think he would complement them well, being the primary ball handler in that situation.
Yeah. Coop, you're our resident point guard. What's your takeaways on Halliburton?
I like his game. He's solid, very long, athletic, and had a big jump from his freshman to sophomore year. at Iowa State, which is, to me is shows a lot. He's got to get stronger. He has at 6'5", he's only around 185, so he's got to put some weight on. But yeah, I think he's a better fit for the Bulls than LaMelo would be at this spot, which kind of puts them in a tough spot because, especially since Mike took the only other big guy who's probably top 5 caliber. But you already have Kobe White. You don't and Zach LaVine. You certainly don't need LaMelo Ball, who's a score first kind of point guard. I think. I think Halliburton would be the better fit with the Bulls. So I don't mind him taking him over Ball when you factor in the team here, and you're not looking at like star potential. You're looking at fit at that point, and how Kobe White played in the second half of the year is encouraging. So you really don't want to give up on him, which is essentially what you would be doing if you took a guy like LaMelo Ball here. So I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I actually am really high on Halliburton. So like something we talk about is floor and ceiling. So he's high floor, low ceiling, right? I think that he's going to be a solid player. I don't see any way that he's a bust. Super high basketball IQ. I think that almost gets overlooked nowadays when we talk about point guards. Like he's a leader on the floor. He's a little bit older for his job. I mean, he's 20. So, if that's older, a lot of these guys are 19, 18. So, but yeah, he shoots it well from 3. Funky shot for him, but it goes in. Leader. Kind of reminds me of Monte Morris when he came out of Iowa State a couple years ago. So, okay, so then Coop, you have Golden State with the 5th pick. Your team, actually.
I'm a Steph fan. I'm a Steph fan.
Yeah.
So it'd be super unfortunate for them, first of all, to fall to 5 and then have Onyeka come off the board at 3 with Mike stealing him there. So if I'm the GM, I'm actually trading this pick.
I was going to ask, are we trading this pick?
But no, I don't know if we're since we're not trading picks. I'm going to go with Isaac Okoro. The wing from Auburn. And the reason here is fit. You're talking about a team who's getting Klay Thompson back. Just recently made a trade for Andrew Wiggins. And really the only other spot in their starting 5 that's up for grabs is the 5, but they apparently really like Chris anyway. So, and there's not really a 5 here to take at the number 5 slot. So if they have to stay at this spot, they got to take Okoro. I think he's something that they need. He probably wouldn't start for them, but he gives them an immediate, wing defender who can guard 2 through 4. I think even when you go small ball, he can go down and guard the 4 position. You're not going to really ask for much from him offensively, with Steph and Klay, and even Andrew Wiggins now, and the talent that they have. So he's really kind of a guy that comes in and be the, lockdown defender. I think he fills the Iguodala role. Obviously, he won't be as good as Iguodala right away. I'm not gonna put that kind of pressure on him, but that's the role he's gonna play, right? Is when he comes in and they go to Dre at the 5, they probably slide him to the 4. To pick and start pushing pace. And I think that's going to be great for his development. Him not having to be, a go-to scorer or anything like that at that spot. So I like Okoro here at the 5th spot.
Yeah, I like Okoro too. Now he's tough and he can finish at the rim. He's a guy. We talked about this on an episode when we talked about the NCAA and their stuff. We talked about how usually guys who stay around for another year don't. He actually did himself a favor by staying, I think. So Jimmy Butler would be my ceiling comparison, but right now he has no shot. He cannot shoot a lick. It's bad right now. It's totally inconsistent. The form is totally inconsistent. He doesn't make them. That's the biggest question, but I think he's a day one go out and guard the best player on the other team. Maybe not for them because of the guys they have, but he has that potential. You like Okoro, Taylor?
Yeah, I do. He's like a two-way slashing guy, explosive athlete, explosive dunker. I think I've been saying explosive too much in this podcast already, but I mean he just kind of jumps out on the screen. He can.
Yeah.
One of my notes is he can guard any position, 1 through 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can see him being very versatile, very switchable, and he did have inconsistent shot mechanics. Really kind of clunky shot.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, maybe Golden State, maybe in the right, support system, he could, develop into a good enough shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Be an elite defender on one end, be a good enough shooter, kind of like Iguodala is. Iguodala is not a great 3-point shooter, but he can make open shots and he can make big shots. So if he can develop into something like that, I think Golden State gets whoever gets him is great value.
Taylor, are you packaging? If you're Golden State, if you're Bob Myers, are you?
If you can, you got to. But go ahead, Taylor.
Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out.
No, you're good. I said, if you're Bob Myers, are you packaging this pick with Wiggins and trying to flip it, or are you keeping the pick?
Oh, I'm trading it.
Yeah,
I'm trading it. I don't want a situation to happen where they get a top 3 pick and he doesn't play. Right? Like, I mean, they get number 1. They pick Wiseman. Okay, do they trust Wiseman in the playoffs? Are they just like putting him on the shelf for when, right? I don't want the risk of one of these young players that need to develop. I mean, they'd be in a good system, but they'd be an immediate role player. They wouldn't really have time to grow. I would just be afraid of that. I'm trading the pick for somebody. I don't know. I couldn't tell you who, but yeah, throw Wiggins in there.
Yeah,
get a value.
I'm trading it too.
Get a good piece.
Yeah, I'm trading the pick as well for all the reasons that Taylor just said. So I have the 6th pick with Minnesota. I think I have to take LaMelo Ball at this point. But again, it's like because he's and this is another article I want to write for our website is like, what the hell? Like there is a pandemic going around in AAU basketball and high school basketball. And it is the pandemic of score first point guards. Because it just and Eli might not like that as a former point guard who scored a lot, but I'm just saying like a lot of times it doesn't work. It's not conducive to winning a lot of the time when the guy who dribbles the ball up is also the primary offensive guy. So that's the reason I don't like LaMelo, but I think that because they have D'Angelo Russell and he's on the other side, if they had any other shooting guard, I think I would take Killian Hayes. But Killian Hayes is so left-hand dominant. So left-hand dominant that I don't think I can have him with D'Angelo Russell. So I will take LaMelo Ball with Minnesota. So just on LaMelo, super high basketball IQ, great vision, great passing, all the same superlatives in that regard as Lonzo has. The shot, still questionable. The defense, super questionable. Actually, more like non-existent. So it's a risk, I think. But I don't know. I think you have to take him at some point. He's a 6'7" point guard. Good size, good vision. I think I go with LaMelo. You like LaMelo? Coop?
I love LaMelo's game, and I think he's evolved. Well, let me start. Actually, let me rewind. I hated LaMelo's game when he was a freshman and a sophomore. So let me go back and say that I hated it. I watched videos of it. You can go back and check my Twitter. Search at EL1_Coop LaMelo Ball. You will see very not good tweets about him 3 years ago. Because his shot selection was poor. If he played against good defenders, they locked him up. But then he just shot up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like he went from like 6'1" to 6'6", 6'7" out of nowhere in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden his game changed. The pace of his play changed. His vision got so much better. And that's the thing I love about big point guards. I'm actually more of I'm a big point guard who sees the floor. I only really scored when I needed to. And I think LaMelo Ball, when he grew, it affected his vision, and you can see it because now he sees over defenders. He can see things as it's happening. And I think that really separated him. Now, He absolutely has concerns. You know, he has to get better defensively. However, I think he can be a good defender. He has the tools. I don't think that's the issue. It's an effort thing, which is hard to teach. You know, especially a ton of veterans, like kicking him around and teaching him, the importance of defense. But and I mean, even at 6, I don't really love the fit with D'Angelo Russell, but like Minnesota's in the position where like they just need to acquire talent. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they can be choosy. And you're talking about one of the top 3 talents in the draft. I think you have to take him at this spot. So at 6, you're getting star quality power, and he can also play. I think he can play off the ball. And so can D'Angelo Russell. I think they can make that work, but both of them would have to get tremendously better defensively for that to work long term.
What's the ball report, Taylor?
So I do like LaMelo Ball, right? He's elite passing vision. I think best passing vision in the draft. Now he can shoot. I mean, he just questionable shot selection. Great Twitter video, kind of all-star. Like he's watching play. It's like, he's fun to watch. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Defensively, obvious issues with him being 180 pounds at 6'8", right? Who's he gonna guard? What's his lateral quickness like? But I think Lonzo, his older brother, had similar, critiques and potential, and Lonzo ends up is a great team defender, right? One thing, I didn't play basketball at a super high level, high school, but if you have elite passing vision on one end, there's no way that doesn't translate a little bit on the other end, right? Sure. You can be able to anticipate passing lanes. I don't see defense being a huge problem, but maybe in Minnesota with D'Lo, that's not an ideal fit. But at number 6, I don't think you can take anybody else with this pick. I agree.
Yes. So, and I don't know, like the defense, I think you're right, Taylor. I think that he will improve. And this is something, too, that we saw with the other kid who went to R.J. Hampton. He is another guy. You look at his draft grade, and I'm sure that he'll probably get picked in this maybe. But we'll talk about him. Same issue, right? Defense. This footwork's terrible. Off ball, bad. I don't know if should be such a knock on them, or more so a knock on, well, these guys didn't go play college basketball. They didn't have college basketball coaches who preach defense. The style of league they were in, the reason they were there, more so LaMelo than RJ, was to put on a show. So I think that he's got the tools to get better, similar to Lonzo. The other thing about him, are you hesitant to draft him at all? Taylor, you go first, and then Eli. Are you hesitant to draft him at all because of LeVar? You care?
In Minnesota, no.
Yeah.
Lonzo seems like he's doing pretty well in New Orleans. I don't know, not a lot of chatter from LeVar, but the Lakers, I mean, there's reports that the Lakers teammates didn't really like him. Like they were kind of tired of it, right? I haven't heard anything in New Orleans. I think if he fell 1-2 more picks to the Knicks, maybe I'm thinking that. Maybe similar situation to the Knicks. I don't know. He's an LA guy though. Maybe it was a thing. I don't know. Maybe it was an LA thing. I don't think so. I think anywhere but the Lakers, I think you take a chance on the guy, right? If you're confident with him, I think you take him. I think he's got all-star potential.
Yeah, I mean, LeVar's toned it down quite a bit since Lonzo's got traded. I think, and especially since they had that whole debacle. Out of the way, you know what I mean? Like Lonzo's kind of been like, okay, like it's time for you to, step aside, and that's really, I think he's kind of figured it. Like LeVar has kind of figured it out. Like, okay, I kind of need to let my, sons, live their own lives. So I don't think, and I think LaMelo's like strong-headed enough to be able to handle himself. He's practically been an adult for 3 years now with the amount of media scrutiny that family's gotten. So, he'll be fine. And you're drafting the player. If the player is good enough, and he's not, and LeVar's not going to complain if his son's performing. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, and just to to wrap that up, if I'm a team and I'm saying, well, I want to draft this guy, but I don't think I can draft him because the dad is such a if his dad is such a distraction. Well, I think I need to look at my organization more than I need to look at the player and his dad.
Yeah, agreed.
So, okay. So, Taylor, you are on the clock with Detroit.
Detroit. So there's two clear-cut picks for this. I think you guys would both agree. I like the fit of Killian Hayes here as the point guard, but I think I mentioned earlier that Obi Toppin is number 3 on my big board. So I think I'm gonna have to pick my number 3 guy on my big board. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of unknown with the French point guard Hayes, and there's a lot of like solid, like you mentioned before, maybe a low ceiling, which maybe Detroit wants those high ceiling guys, but definitely high floor. Obi Toppin is my pick, 6'9", 220 pounds. First impression is maybe it's against the A10, but he's a man against boys, right? He gets to his spots whenever he wants to. He shows good, solid footwork, back down ability in the post. I don't know how well that's going to translate to the next level with actual like adults, defending him. But another thing is he's a definite lob threat. That's the obvious thing that you see with Toppin. Good lob threat, and I really like his jumper. I like his 3-point jumper. He has a quick release. He shot 39% from 3. He only took 2.5 a game, but he does show potential. Definitely shows potential in that regard. He was widely regarded as the best college basketball player this season. Right?
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I think getting him at number 7, I think that's great value with whoever it is. You compare him with Blake. Blake is a different player now, but he's kind of like a poor man's Blake Griffin, right? That's one thing that came to my mind. Now the knock on him would be defensively, right? Lateral quickness. I think it'd almost be a nightmare situation. Even though he's 6'9", I don't like his matchup at all against any guard on a pick and roll switch defensively. Not a great shot blocker, kind of heavy footed sometimes defensively. But I think he's a definitely plug and play guy. He's a grown man, 220, 6'9". He builds his frame really well. Scored 17 points, 7 boards. Definitely solid pick. Explosive athlete again. So
I like Obi Toppin as well. Obi Toppin for me was the hardest guy to grade in this, probably this entire lottery. And because the other thing that he could potentially fall, that he's an old man. He's 22 years old. He's a 22-year-old sophomore last year. He's going to be the oldest player drafted probably in the first round. So, but yeah, of course he is the explosive athlete. I like the poor man's Blake Griffin. My player comp was Amari. High level, if he reaches his max, would be Amari Stoudemire. But yeah, pick and pop, pick and roll. I think he can do either one. Lob threat. I think he's a plug and play. I think, high floor on him.
Definitely high floor.
Yep, agreed. The fit with Blake Griffin would be the question, but honestly, at this point, the Detroit might be looking to move Blake Griffin anyway. So you probably have to see what happens there. But Obi Toppin is someone that I expected to go higher, and but with the way this lottery shook out, it there's not really a team that was in that top 6 that he would have fit really well with. Maybe Minnesota, but we obviously Ball had to go there. So I like him. Don't love him. And again, Mike, like Mike said, he's 22 already, so that hurts his draft stock a little bit and his upside. But certainly a plug and play guy.
So you have the 8th pick with the Knicks, Coop.
So the Knicks here is tough at the 8th spot, especially because Jesus isn't on the board. So at this point, I think they kind of have to take Killian Hayes. They're in a position where they just have to acquire talent. You know what I mean? And I don't know if they can necessarily afford to think too much about fit. Plus, I don't know, what their future is with Frank. They didn't seem to love Dennis Smith Jr. either at the point guard spot. So, I don't know that either of those guys are their future. So, yeah, I think, Hayes is the most talented player still left on the board at this point, and a guy you got to go with. I considered Cole Anthony.
I knew you did. I thought you were going with him.
I thought you were picking Cole Anthony.
Mostly because, it was tough because, his father obviously was a former New York Knick.
Yep.
And I think that would have been an excellent storyline, but I think you got to take it.
I actually do like the fit of Cole Anthony if that were a possibility. But yeah, Killian Hayes probably improved more over this season than a lot of guys in this draft. He developed a really nice step back, sidestep shot. Very left-hand dominant. We'll see how that can pair with RJ Barrett there. 29% from three, but 88% from the free throw line. I mentioned that I like that indicator a little bit more. But I'm really high on Killian Hayes. Killian Hayes is number 4 on my big board. Maybe that's too high, but I don't know. I like him. It's tough when he's in Germany, not in college basketball. He struggles against athletic, bigger guards, not always able to break him down off the dribble. That would be probably the area of work, but I think he has a high upside, and I like Killian Hayes a lot.
I like Killian Hayes as well. Really, really nice. Can develop into a really, really nice pick and roll ball handler. So, yeah, he can't break people down off the dribble, but I think a lot of his game is going to be on the pick and roll. The player that he reminds me of is a young kind of Ohio State, Los Angeles Lakers, D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
Right. He reminds me a lot of that. And yeah, I don't think it'd be a good fit in Minnesota. And for what it's worth, Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer did have him ranked number 1. Maybe it was just to be a big time curveball, but that's it's worth something. Right. Yeah. But I do like his game. He's got a smooth mid-range game, pull up floater, step back jumper, loves the step back jumper.
Yep.
He kind of shoots from the chest, but he does elevate on his jump shot. I don't think it's a problem. He does have the ability to create space, and not a crazy athletic player, but I think he plays at his own pace, right? He can pick his spots nicely. He can use, his quick first step, when he has to. He won't beat you up the dribble very often, but I think he's crafty enough and smart enough, to play at his own pace and pick his own spots nicely.
Okay, so then Killian Hayes is off the board to the Knicks, which means I have the 9th pick, which is the Hornets. And I actually really like what the Hornets have going on with Devontae Graham. This pick, I am going to take a guy. I think I have this guy higher than most people, and that's Devin Vassell from Florida State. Love Devin Vassell. My high-end comparison is Paul George. I think he's right away a 3-and-D guy. Super high basketball IQ. He's not a one-on-one scorer, but he's a very capable and good passer and catch and shoot. He's really good. Good size for his position, and can come in right away and be a defensive starter for a team. So I like Devin Vassell a lot. I'm very high on him.
I like that pick. I like Devin Vassell. I love that Florida State team in general, but Devin Vassell. Also, I like him. I like the fit here, along with Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier in the back, as their backcourt. They certainly could use a two-way, guy who can play the 2 or the 3. to fit into that starting five. So I like the fit there. And I think, like you said, he projects well as a very good two-way player.
No, I agree. I really liked him. I was hoping to get him with the next pick, if we're being completely honest with you. But great two-way guy at 6'7", 6'10" wingspan. Great team defender. I think he's he could be regarded as one of the best defenders, one of the best perimeter defenders in this draft. Shot 41% from three. He was the leading scorer at 12.7 a game, but that's kind of how that Florida State team is run, right? And he does play good help defense, but maybe that's part of the system. He's always in the right spot, it seems. I really like that pick. Really good plug and play guy. I think he can make an impact now. I mean, with Charlotte, it is what it is, but I think he would fit in with that young core.
Yeah. Okay, so then 10, Taylor has the Suns.
All right. Now, I was gonna pick Vassell, but can't now. So I'm gonna take Aaron Naismith from Vanderbilt.
I wanted this guy so bad. I wanted him so. I'm all in on this guy.
Now, the only thing, I was like I said before, I was going to take Vassell here, but a lot of maybe Cam Johnson, similarities, but dude is by far the best 3-point shooter in this draft. It's not close, right? He took about 8 threes a game, made 52%.
52, it's insane.
Unbelievable. This guy has great footwork. I mean, they scored 23 points a game in Vanderbilt. Now their whole offense is run through him, but running off screens, running off pin downs, reading the screens really well. Fluid jump shot, beautiful looking jumper, good size, 6'6", 215. He's not a great athlete, but I think he's got good size, and I think he'll be a good team defender. I think he'll be a solid defender. I think he can grow into that role. But I do like his footwork coming off the screen. So I'm going to take Naismith. I think anybody can use a sharpshooter. Playing off, with Devin Booker, with Ricky Rubio at the point. I think he could fit in nicely at the 3 position in Phoenix if he falls this far, which he probably will. I mean, he's kind of an underrated kind of player based on, other mocks and what have you that I've seen.
Yeah, I think 7 years ago he probably is a second round pick. But in this NBA, I think everyone has a spot for a guy, or at least is willing to take a chance on a guy like this. I mean, he's a flamethrower. That's absolutely what he is. He's 52%, unbelievable. Shoots it on the move, coming off screens. He's able to get balanced very quickly. Which is really impressive at a young age. And, the defense is probably – I think my player comp would be a Denver J.R. Smith. I like that type of a game for him. I love Naismith. I have him actually 15 on my big board, but I was thinking even that was a little bit high. But Taylor grabbed him. Okay.
Yeah, I like the pick too, especially because you think about it, even though Phoenix has Devin Booker, during his time, they've been one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league when you look at their team percentage. So absolutely they could use a shooter. Now, they're getting a little log jam there at the wing spot because they here in Kelly Ouber's contract. Yeah, exactly. Very good for them. So he's probably coming off the bench in that scenario. And they also like Bridges. Bridges was very good for them too, as a two-way, defender. So and there's not a lot of minutes at the 2 spot, obviously, with Devin Booker there. So they kind of have to figure a way to squeeze him in. As far as playing time goes, he'd have a bit of a battle, but they absolutely could use the shooting.
So, Coop, you have the 11th pick, and that's the Spurs.
All right. So, I think this one is pretty obvious for the Spurs, at least. And The Spurs love their international guys. I'm going to go international. Denny Avdija. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If someone has the correct pronunciation, go ahead.
Close enough.
But 6'9", small forward, who's very versatile. Like, he can play from the 2 all the way down to the 4. He's got, high basketball IQ, solid shot, needs to improve and get more consistent. But certainly a guy who can become a shooter. He's good with the ball in his hands, especially for a 6'9". Can pull up game. And, I think he'd be a great fit. I think the 3 spot is a need for them. When you factor in, they've got DeRozan, who can kind of play either or, but he can also slide to the 4. I think, as far as player comparison, he kind of gives me like Hito Turkoglu vibes. As far as I think his ceiling, and like Turkoglu with the Magic was very, very productive, and I think a little bit ahead of his time. I think he would have been a very good stretch 4, and I think like Denny will probably end up being like more of a stretch 4 who can also put the ball on the floor. So I think with the Spurs, a team that moves the basketball and has a ton of high IQ players, I think he's an excellent fit for the Spurs.
Yeah, Denny can kind of do it all. 6'9", like you said, if you watch the tape on him, he's definitely confident. He's not afraid to go score. My biggest knock is he's a 52% free throw shooter. That's got to improve. He can definitely shoot it from anywhere. He is a little bit streaky. I feel comfortable calling him a key athlete. He's got deceptive speed. I like Denny, but he's one of these guys. He's kind of hard to grade because of he's playing in Israel. Taylor's our European player expert, though.
No, do not give me that title. I'm not proud of that title, and I'm not an expert. Not an expert. Most of the time, it's not even the EuroLeague games or the big games that we're gonna move on from that. But from this guy, he does have great vision, great overall feel for the game. I love that Turkoglu comp. Scoop, that's a great comp. Turkoglu was, a lot of times asked to be a primary ball handler on that Magic team, right? So I think that's kind of the role he'll fit best. Be a 3, be like maybe like the second team primary ball handler. Very crafty. Shooting is streaky. He doesn't have a bad looking shot just to look at it. And like Mike said, he is a confident guy. Like, I don't know. I can see that developing. 2 big things is the European unknown. When he did play in the EuroLeague, he did only score 4 points a game in a limited role, which is understandable. He's a young kid. And another thing is, I kind of get the vibe where he's kind of good at everything. And what's he gonna excel at, especially in a spot like getting picked 11th? The Spurs, they're looking for role players, plug and play guys. I mean, I think if anybody's going to do it, I think it's the Spurs that could make him a fit immediately. But I think this will be a couple-year project for whoever takes him, whether it be the Spurs. I like that fit for him. I think that'd be a good spot to land. But I mean, I like Denny. I like Denny here, and I did have the pronunciation last night, but then I looked at it again, and that's all it took. All I had to do was look at the name again.
He's actually got potential to be a draft and stash guy. Maybe he draft him and then he goes and he plays in Europe one more year because he was on limited minutes. The fear is he's more Dario Saric than Hito Turkoglu. I think that's maybe where he ends up being. I like him though, higher upside. So okay, so you went there with the Spurs. I've got the 12th pick, which is the Kings. And I am kind of torn on what to do here because on one hand, I would like to take a guard to put next to De'Aaron Fox. But at the same time, you got Buddy. But, who knows how long Buddy's going to be there. But I think I'll take a higher upside guy. And I'm going to take another Florida State guy here. Patrick Williams, power forward from Florida State. So plays multiple positions on offense and defense. One of these guys who is going to come into the league and be able to guard guys immediately, basically. You know, I won't say explosive again, but he's a very he is a notable athlete. He has all of the, you know, and he can shoot it a little bit too. He's a little bit streaky. He's not afraid to shoot the three. What did he shoot? 32% from three, and I think he was 84 free throw line. I think he's got the potential to be a stretch four. You know, the downside comparison would be Derek Williams, probably, because you know he was the guy who was similar. This athletics has a higher upside. He's the guy who shot up the mock drafts throughout the year. So I like him as an upside pick for the Kings. You got anything on Patrick Williams, Coop?
Yeah, I think that's a good fit for him. Is the Kings? I think if Vassell had fallen a little bit, that would have been ideal for them. But I think the next best option there at 12 is Patrick Williams. Like you said, projects well as a two-way guy. Like you said, if he gets more confident shooting it from the three, he's a guy who can switch into multiple positions as well. Like you said, he could probably guard 1 through 4 and play 2 through 4. As far as where you're putting him in on the floor. So, and that's kind of what the Kings need. I think they have Harrison Barnes playing the 3 right now, which isn't ideal, but he'd be able to come into a situation where not much is expected from him offensively. So he can kind of focus in on his defense and hone in that, ability, which would give him the most value at that pick.
Yeah, I like Patrick Williams as well. 6'7", 6'11" wingspan, multiple position defender. I like that he could play the 2 through 4. He could guard the 2 through 4. He can still grow, still develop into a more efficient scorer, but I do like that pick right there.
Okay, so then Taylor is back on the clock with the 13th pick, which is New Orleans. They're a tough team to pick for because they've got such a good young core already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about point guard earlier, and I think we had Cole Anthony, Kira Lewis, but I'm gonna go.
Are you gonna say the guy from Stanford?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I really like. I've watched a lot of Kentucky basketball, probably more than anybody else. Them and Duke. I love Tyrese Maxey. Right, especially for New Orleans here. I think of him as like a Drew Holiday type player. He is a tenacious defensive player. He's a gamer. There's nothing he's really exceptional at. Shooting percentage is kind of low. He shot 30% from 3, 42% from the field. But he hits big shots. He's a good finisher around the rim. One thing that really impresses me is the way he can draw contact off bigger players and still finish. He's got the floater. He can create space. Streaky shooter, but man, he's just a bulldog on defense. What I see him, especially at 13. Now you'll see statistics about the draft where if you're not picking in the top 5, then you're picking role players, and it's a crapshoot after that, right? I love him as a 6th man for a couple years. Especially Drew Holiday's still there, but I really like that in New Orleans. Good defensive, hustle player off the bench. 6-man kind of guy is what I see him being immediately, and being a valuable six-man guy right now. Good point guard skills, not great passer, but I think he worked really, really well with the guards. Higgins and Quickly at Kentucky. I really like that Kentucky team for whatever reason. I think he can work well with Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, and Josh Hart. I think in Zion, of course. I think he'll be a good fit there.
18 on my big board. A little bit undersized, only 6'3". For his, he's kind of a hybrid point guard, shooting guard. Good finisher at the rim, that's for sure. He has a way of getting contact and getting to the line. I know me and you both like guys who can get to the line. Good length, though. He's 6'3", but he has good length, higher wingspan. The handle is where the work needs to be put in, working on that. He doesn't quite have, his first step isn't great. Doesn't quite have that burst when driving off the dribble. That's probably where he needs to work the most. But he definitely has the clutch label, right?
Yeah.
And whatever, you take that for what it's worth in college, but he has that. I think that matters. Coop, what's your grade on Maxey?
I really like Maxey. I agree with Taylor that, especially in like a six-man role, where you don't necessarily have to, have a ton of efficiency, you know what I mean? And he can be a guy that comes in off the bench to create some offense, but also be a tenacious, guy on the defensive end who hounds, the ball handlers. So ball, if he can play his way into the starting, I think he has, the ability to defend and be that kind of, I wouldn't say 3-and-D, but a good another option for them if him, get hot. So really, if he ever, figures out the efficiency, could be looking at a pretty good scorer there for years to come.
Yeah. Great, Coop. You have the last pick of the lottery, which is Portland.
Yeah. So this one's a tough one. They're kind of locked. They're kind of locked in at center with Whiteside and Nurkic.
Yep.
There, they have Melo now at the 4. Not sure what his future is in Portland, but at this point in the draft, not a ton of two-way wings or anything like that. I'm gonna go with Precious Achiuwa from Memphis. However, I think he fits what they need the most, which is, some athleticism and a guy with some length and some defensive ability. I think if he gets a little bit more fluid as an athlete, you can even possibly slide into the 3 and he can defend threes. But I think his best opportunity is going to be like a slashing 4. Has to improve his jump shot, which, he shot a decent percentage, but like on 1 attempt a game. So not really much that shows a lack of confidence in his shot. So that has to improve because then he can really develop into a stretch 4, a two-way stretch 4, which would be super valuable especially for the Blazers. So I think fit-wise, I think he's probably the best option there. Kind of has like a Mo Harkless. So that's who I would take if I'm Portland here.
I think that he actually got hurt in this draft because of Wiseman not playing. Because coming into this year, it was supposed to be him and Wiseman, and Memphis was set up to have a really good year. And I think that they would have probably had more attention, and the game would have been a lot easier for him. So I like him. He's a little bit clumsy right now.
Yeah.
He got Bambi tendencies. But yeah, I like the pick for Portland. Kayla, you like him?
I like him. 6'9", kind of undersized, but he can play multiple positions. Good wingspan. You have 7'2" is a wingspan. I didn't have a ton on him, but I totally agree with what Mike said. Like, I was excited to watch Memphis play before the season, and then once Wiseman went on, I didn't watch one game.
Right.
Honest to God, I mean maybe one. They're playing South Florida, some dumb Saturday morning game. But no, nothing else. I like his, I like his size. I like his athleticism. Physical, athletic guy. Multiple position kind of player, 3 or 4. I think was probably where he's going to land. No, I like that pick to close out the lottery there.
Okay, so lottery went Atlanta taking Edwards, Washington taking Wiseman, Cleveland taking Okongwu, Chicago taking Tyrese Halliburton, Golden State taking Isaac Okoro, Minnesota getting LaMelo Ball, Detroit getting Obi Toppin, the Knicks getting Killian Hayes, the Hornets getting Devin Vassell, Suns got Aaron Nesmith, Spurs got Denny Avdija, we think is his last name. The Kings got Patrick Williams, the Pelicans got Tyrese Maxey, and who'd you say Portland got, Eli?
Precious Achua.
Okay, so Precious Achua. Sure. And then I had the 15th pick with Orlando, and I took Paul Reed, but we won't get into that. So that is the lottery. Did you have any other guys on your list, Taylor, that you really like? Just maybe throw a couple names out that you like that we didn't go over.
So one guy that I like, and actually, you know what? I'll just say a couple things about Cole Anthony because he was the only other guy on my list. And I'll let Coop do most of the talking about that because, you know, had a good pedigree with Greg Anthony. Missed a lot of games that were like important North Carolina games. North Carolina was kind of terrible, but I think that he missed a big part of that ACC schedule that kind of had him drop off the cliff. He scores 18 points a game. One thing that I see from him is, other than sometimes poor shot selection, is just an uncanny ability to be in the right spot for rebounds. Now, as you know, Mike, I'm not a huge rebounding guard kind of guy, but those aren't selfish rebounds. He's there. Like he's just always kind of there for those boards. I do like him, explosive athlete, good point guard abilities. And another thing that there were some reports that he may or may not be the best teammate. So I don't know. I'm not going to go too far into that, but from what I see, there's nothing too terribly wrong with him. I like him. I think there's a lot of potential if somebody gets him after 14 after the lottery. I think this is a risk that a lot of teams should and would take really quickly after the lottery if he falls this far.
Yeah.
I think Orlando would have been a good fit for him at 15.
Yeah.
Because I think they're kind of in need of a point guard.
Well, they have Fultz. Markelle Fultz.
Yeah, right. They do.
I'm not done with Markelle Fultz.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Yeah. No, but you're right. I like that.
You could possibly pair both of them in the backcourt. Fultz can, play a little bit of the two. I think he's more comfortable at the one, but can also play at the two. So can Cole Anthony, play off the ball. So, but I think like Cole Anthony will be a better pro, I think, or a more efficient pro, I would expect, than college player because the floor spacing changes, right, and the pace changes. Like if you can get him in a system where he can push the ball down the floor, like if like with the Magic, I think they'd have pretty good floor spacing, and you really focus on tempo with him and allow him to get out in transition is where he's his most dangerous. I think that would really help. I think he's got to become a more consistent shooter, especially for someone who shoots it as much as he did, which 35% isn't bad. And I think, maybe that's a little bit lower because of shot selection, like Taylor said. But I think he has star quality, man. Like I think he has star potential, has shown that he can be an explosive athlete at times as well. So it's really going to be, but in this lottery, there was no real fit for him other than the Knicks. Other than that, the other point guards that were in this were better fits for the teams that really needed point guards. And there's not a ton of teams that need point guards. So like wherever he lands, he's going to end up battling probably with a young, point guard that a team has recently drafted or whatever the case may be. So he has a bit of an uphill battle. But I think he's, like you said, you get him outside the lottery, I think that's a steal.
Yeah, the biggest knock was the shot selection. But, I mean, he was playing on a bad team.
That's another thing.
Really bad team, and they all had injuries. And the other thing, too, about him is the injury prone. He had injuries in high school and in North Carolina, so you wonder about that. But he can definitely score. He's got a sweet-looking side step-back move. I like his potential. I don't know if I'd use a lottery pick on him. Coop, did you have any other guys that are worth even mentioning?
Yeah, I think we got to talk about R.J. Hampton, who's I really wonder what his draft stock would look like had he gone to college. Because I don't think yeah, right. And I don't think the Australia experiment worked out for him as much as it did LaMelo Ball, who I think his stock actually shot up with him not going to college. So, he's long, athletic point guard, could also play the two. I think he has potential to be a good defender. Obviously, he has to improve there, like we mentioned earlier. But he has the potential. I think upside's really good for him. It's really big for him, but he could also be a bust. So, the later that you get him, the better, because the less risk. So RJ Hampton was the guy that came to mind. And Nico Mannion. I like Nico Mannion a lot, especially as like a potential like off the bench scorer, scoring point guard. I think
there's
later
a sneaky athlete right there.
Yeah. So and I think towards the end of the first round, depending on where he falls to, maybe they could find a good fit for him. Maybe Dallas at 21.
Yes. And regarding RJ Hampton, we'll give Taylor a chance to talk about him because I know he watched at least one of his games. He was more of a role player for his international. Just from what I watched, it's pretty. In the NBA preseason, his team played against a couple of NBA teams. I think they played against the Thunder and the Grizzlies, and pretty much whoever he was guarding was taking him to the hoop. But he's got, he's good transition scorer. I think his shot, he's a bit streaky, but from the waist up, his shot looks pretty good. From the waist down, it looks pretty bad. His feet are sometimes he does like a weird, funky thing where they're right now. So here, even RJ Hampton, Rupert at all?
RJ Hampton, I don't know. There's a lot of unknown. I think LaMelo Ball almost benefited too much. I don't know what it was about his NBL career. Maybe it's the flashy plays. Maybe it's. I mean, I love LaMelo Ball, but RJ didn't get a lot of attention in the NBL. I think he only played a couple games, if I'm not mistaken, this past season. But good size, good length. I think he's he'll be a versatile player. Combo guard. I like him. I like him definitely in the first round. Definitely in the top 20. I could see him going for sure. I think it's a good risk to take.
He's a risk. So some of the other guys I had Kira Lewis Jr. From Alabama as a lottery pick. Paul Reed from DePaul. I think he is the best defender in the draft. Offense is where there's big question marks, but I like Paul Reed. He's kind of an older player. Tyrell Terry, point guard from Stanford. I really like him. He shoots threes really well. He's super undersized, though. He's only 6'1". The knock on him is a lot of people think he should go back to school. And then the only other guy that I would have in my top 20 is Jamius Ramsey from Texas Tech. I think he's a guy who is going to come in the league and be able to score the basketball right away. But besides that, that's all the main guys.
So I did mention Cole Anthony. The other guy that I like is Saddiq Bey out of Villanova.
Oh, yeah.
I do like him. He's kind of another role player. I think he could fit in with a variety of different teams. It's like a 3-and-D wing. Good size, can guard the other team best player. I mean, he did that a lot in the Big East. Guarding, Jordan Howard from Marquette or whatever it may be. 16 points a game, 45% from the three. I do like Bey. I think he's a long player, can defend multiple positions, can knock down the three, and for a lot of teams if you're drafted in the first round, especially late in the first round, if he drops that far, what else do you really want? So Saddiq Bey.
I like Saddiq Bey as well, especially if I'm a team who's competing already for a championship. Maybe he's in the 24 to 30 range, getting picked by a contender. I can definitely see. He's a Villanova guy.
Yeah.
So out Eli's way.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, well, that's all the NBA draft stuff we have for today. We were able to keep it within an hour and a half, so that's good. Thank you, Taylor, for joining us to do the NBA mock draft. Taylor is going to be joining us for other stuff, NBA, NFL. We're going to do some golf, maybe, me and him.
I think about 65% of my appearances will probably be talking about gambling in one way or another. So this was a nice, refreshing deep dive, to do this, to look into the draft. And now I can't wait. I'm excited for the draft.
Right, like that's what I was looking at it. I was scouting all these guys, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't." I haven't been this excited about the NBA draft in a while. Maybe it's the quarantine and lack of sports.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, kind of sad that it's going to be pushed back so far now. But I think it's I did love this. I'd like to do one of these one a week where we shuffle it around even more. But yeah, excellent. Takes, and like I said, there's a lot of upside in this draft, man. A lot of quality players. I think there's a lot of guys who will get overlooked just from like the fan perspective. But will end up being like quality players, I think, for some teams. So excellent looking draft.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this episode up then, Eli. Talk to the people about what we got coming up here.
Yeah. So coming up on our next show, which we record on Sunday, you guys will see Monday. We have a very special guest, former NFL lineman Ethan Cooper. Former IUP legend, will be joining us to, talk about some things that he's going on, talk about his journey, through the NFL Combine and into the NFL, and what his day-to-day was like, things like that. So definitely going to be some interesting convo there, for you guys to hear the perspective of a former professional in the NFL. So I'm excited to have him on for Monday's show.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. So as an IUP alumni, definitely excited to talk to him. He's an IUP legend and also a Steeler fan. His first team was with the Steelers. That's where he went after he graduated after he finished his time at IUP. So definitely excited for that. Make sure you guys are checking in with the website, allinnetwork.net. I'm going to have my big board up there probably tomorrow. And also, like we mentioned, Dan Thiel just posted an article on there. A really, really thoughtful, well-written article about everything going on right now in America. So make sure you check that out. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't yet. Subscribe to us on Apple if you haven't yet. We appreciate everything you guys are doing, listening, and sharing us. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you,
episode 12, All In Podcast. Signing off.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again, guys.
See you guys.
Yep.